Hi, this is Christine from Tapped Out Travelers, and we're at the Bonnechere Caves today. We're going to have a good time on our hike. Come take a look.
So if you guys have any questions about the things I talk about today, or maybe something you're seeing, don't hesitate with the questions. Just shout them out at me, run me over. You will not offend me by doing that. Oh, thank you. I do quite like questions, guys, so I will just try to answer them for you. But first, I do have a question for all of you. Would you happen to know what kind of rock it is we're standing on now, just beneath our feet here?
Papa rock. First guess? Yep.
0, 3, 4. Crushed stone. You're not wrong. But the type of rock is limestone. Now, limestone is sedimentary rock, which just means it's made of layers and layers of fine sediments. So things like sand, mud, clay, but also things like decomposing creatures, their bodies. These sediments fall into nice layers and are then compacted, compressed by the forces in the earth. And it turns into this very solid rock. It is quite easy to find fossils in limestone, guys, and first one we're going to talk about, this one here. Now, looking at the pattern or the kind of design within this, what would you say it looks like? Maybe reminds you of? Yeah.
Honeycomb?
Honeycomb, for sure. This is a piece of honeycomb coral, or a bit more scientifically, tabulate, this coral here. And the fact that we found this fossil, a piece of coral where we're standing, that tells us a lot about what it was like around here back when this coral was still alive, back in the Ordovician time period, some 450 million years ago, in the age of the invertebrates. And that just means, guys, life was a bit simpler back then. So nothing had evolved a spinal column like we have. Nothing was standing upright. And coral, I said, can tell us about the conditions all those millions of years ago. That's because coral reef, even the ones we still have around, need some pretty specific things to live. Would you guys have any guesses as to what coral might need to survive? Definitely. As a marine animal, coral has to be sitting in salt water to breathe. And just a touch more specific than that, the water it's in also has to be quite shallow, as coral does need sunlight to live. It's why we find them on reefs today, instead of those great ocean depths. Now, I'm sure you guys can tell we're not standing under salt water right now, but if we have fossilized coral here, there must have been salt water when it was living, or else it wouldn't have survived around here. And that theory of ancient seawater, it's backed up by these next two fossils, a different type of coral from the time period, both pieces of horned coral or Rugose solitary. And they call it horned coral because if you pop it up on your forehead, you do indeed look like a unicorn. It has been scientifically proven. But I'll give it to you guys. Yeah, you can pass it around for sure. Get a closer look.
Can I be a unicorn? Do you want to be a unicorn?
Nice. Oh yeah, you do. I can tell. So guys, both pieces more or less identical to each other, and they're also both very similar to this honeycomb coral, as all three would have started as just a thin sheet of calcite, a calcium-rich mineral, and then small worm-like creatures called polyps, they build off that mineral until eventually they've built the entire coral. Next up, guys, we'll talk about this one on the corner, and trapped within that rock are the remains of one of these creatures, or crinoids, or more than likely several of these crinoids. Now, I understand the fossil and the picture, they don't really match. That's because what we have left here is only the bone system. So guys, all of these very small rings we're seeing in this rock, they aren't ancient Cheerios, they are indeed bones. But normally, all of those bones were stacked, one on top of another. If you look closely, yeah, there are still some stacked up. Going up this central route, which the crinoid uses to anchor itself to the seafloor, think like our sea anemones do today, these creatures never would have moved. And those rings are also stacked up all of these feeding tentacles, usually surrounded in a soft tissue of some sort. So skin, muscle, something like that. However, when a crinoid dies, it would have fallen over. And all of that soft tissue, it biodegrades away. It melts away into the seawater, leaving just the hard rings behind. And those rings are, of course, then free to scatter in the ocean currents. Yep.
What are these?
So these ones are just the little rings stacked on top like this almost. It is kind of rare to find them like this, but it is just these rings kind of stacked up one on top of another. Now, some fossils that are way more common in this area inside this rock, we have dozens and dozens of these creatures, our brachiopods. And I know it is not fair of me, but would you guys happen to speak ancient Greek by any chance? Or maybe Latin? Latin will also do. No, not as much. That's all right, guys.
Ancient Greek,
I've never
then
met anyone who
it's probably
speaks
an ancient
either
language.
language. I figure if I just ask everyone who comes through here, eventually someone's going to say yes. So I'll just keep waiting. Now, I only know the odd translation, but I know that pod, the three-letter word here, it translates to foot. Scientists, it would turn out, they love to name creatures from this time period, the Ordovician, after the way they moved. So every time, guys, we're seeing pod or foot at the end of an animal's name, it means the first word is going to tell us, or kind of give us a hint as to how that creature moved about. Now, brachio, it translates to arm. Pod again, foot, which makes these a bunch of arm feet. Maybe not the best name,
Arm feet.
but they move around just like our clams do today, so it does make a bit of sense. First, a brachiopod would have opened its shell just a bit, enough to extend a short, gooey, almost arm-like tentacle, which the shell uses to push or pull itself along. If you guys have ever seen clams move, you'll know it is not the fastest method of travel. These brachiopods, they weren't flying across the seafloor by doing that. However, they did have the very dense shells that surround the entire creature, so the brachiopods, they're not exactly worried with moving quick. Whenever they feel they're in danger, maybe feel the seawater shifting about, they're just going to pull their tentacle back, snap the shell shut, and try to wait out whatever it was bugging them. They are quite safe when they're closed up like this. And just like their modern day descendants, so our clams and other seashells, they also filter fed, which just means they would have cycled water through them, pulling out things like algae, plankton, other really small things like that, and that's how they fed themselves, how they survived. Which means that even if all of these shells, this many brachiopods, wanted to live so close, they simply couldn't have. There would not have been enough food in that small area to feed them all, which leaves us wondering how this fossil even came to be. As tour guides do, we came up with a few theories. Please choose. Pardon?
It was a party?
Yeah, a big clam party.
For just like
It's
a special
rave.
occasion?
Yeah, it's a big rave. A good theory. We'll definitely add that to the list of theories. The ones we came up were maybe this is the feeding ground or the dinner plate. So maybe this is the aftermath of some great attack by perhaps, yeah, a cephalopod maybe, or some other ocean predator at that time. And these are just shell fragments it's left behind. A second theory, or I guess third theory, could be all of these brachiopods live and die away from each other where they could have fed no problem, and then ocean currents carried them into a low point, or maybe something like a tidal pool, which is how they got so close. The final theory, also our most likely theory, is that all of these brachiopods engaged in some very large-scale Lord of the Rings style battle, and they all lost their lives in that fight.
Dinosaur and ice age
Can choose
time?
whichever theory you would like.
Oh, but look.
I do think it's kind of obvious which one I
course.
prefer. Something about clams with bows and arrows, swords, it just seems kind of cool to me. But moving on to some much slower creatures, both of these are our gastropod fossils. I know they look quite different, but they are the same type of creature. And again, yeah, we'll pass them around. So that's the fossil in that one, the little gray shell. And the entire spiral is another fossil there. Now, you guys probably know this translation. Gastro, it's stomach or that GI tract. Pod again, foot. And stomach feet, they're our snails, our slugs. It would turn out aquatic snails, they really haven't changed that much in the past 450 million years. These ancient ones would have still just been oozing along the seafloor on their bellies, bottom feeding as they did that. But next up, way more interesting creatures. On both corners, we have amazing examples of these. Our cephalopods, the cone-shelled ones to be exact. Now, cephalo or cephalo, it translates to head or brain. And as you guys probably guessed from the picture, these ones were the ancestors of squids, octopi, other tentacled creatures like that. And they moved around the exact same way. First, a cephalopod would have sucked water into a cavity in its head and shell. You can actually see that cavity in the shell in the middle here a bit easier. And once this is filled with water, the squid head flexes a muscle within, pushing that water out, propelling itself the other way. So think the almost this motions our squids still do today. And because of that, these ancient ones, they were extremely fast creatures and also quite large. From the Ordovician, our cephalopods can grow to be about 16 feet long. That's as long as the shelter we're standing in. Massive creatures. Now, we have what's left of a 12-foot cephalopod, so what's left of its fossilized shell. And we keep that big fossil just over there in that green booth. We call it the ticket booth. But I would be more than happy to show that big fossil to you guys once we're done. If, of course, you want to see it. But if we're ready, we are going to leave the shelter behind now, guys. We'll take just a few steps out that way, staying kind of closer to the river a bit, as we do have a few words for that river.
We had to give the tickets to the gentleman, because that's his job. There's no animals in there. Because it's too busy.
Now, you may have looked at it before, but all of that powerful white water just beside us, it's the Bonnechere River. It spans about 180 kilometers long and way, way back. Nearly 200 years ago in the 1800s, a logging map of the entire river was made with 2 words on it marking our location. So 2 words marking where we are standing. And those words were subterranean channel, which is just a very nerdy way of saying caves, guys. And no one does anything with that map, with the information on it, for a full 100 years. Until 1953, when Tom Woodward finds a copy of that map back in the town of Eganville. You guys, you might remember Tom as the guy who was breaking open the one fossil. It's the same guy. Now, I guess something about that map, about those words, subterranean channels, they interest Tom, because he decides to come down here and look at them for himself. When Tom gets here, he finds exactly what the map was talking about. 5 openings in the side of the cliff face, over that fence, kind of beneath this, if you will, next to the water, and Tom tries to enter through each of those 5 gaps, but he can't get in. There's simply too much of this rushing white water, all kinds of fallen boulders. There's no way through. But that, guys, does not stop Tom for a second. He climbs up onto this side of the shore, was walking just over that hill behind us towards the taller trees, and on the other side of that hill, Tom finds something he did not expect. It is a massive sinkhole. The earth just drops away in front of him. And at that point, Tom does what any sane or rational person might do. Grabs a flashlight, ties a rope around his waist, other end around a close tree, and Tom does jump in.
What?
Now, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, we're not going to enter through the sinkhole today. Our insurance, it doesn't actually let us. So instead, guys, we're all going to enter through our very nice, our very safe, man-made entrance that we blasted out with dynamite back in the 50s. It's just a bit nicer that way. But guys, before we get to the caves, a step to the corner of the fence just here gives us a really good view at 2 of the 5 openings in the cliff.
But that's just like the toilet. The toilet wasn't like the bottomless pit.
Yeah.
So that was, so you were going down the toilet?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You're going down the toilet?
No, it's okay.
You said yes. Where is it? Where's that bottomless pit?
We'll see it on the other side. Look, Olivia. All right. Come on. Emmons, it's okay.
They are.
Each guy has 3 or 2 mains.
Yeah, that's true. They use a lot more dynamite on highways than we had used on our door. Don't worry about that. But guys, if we're all ready, maybe taking a picture or 2 of the river. If you'll follow me up this way, we'll get to the caves.
We're gonna follow the gentleman, that's how. No, the gentleman holds the flashlight.
I do.
Because that's his job.
It took me 3 years to hold this flashlight.
That's
Never letting go. Excellent. So guys, unfortunately we do have a fair amount of poison ivy on the property. If you'd like, I can pick some, we can pass around, take a good look maybe. Not as much. If you guys have never seen poison ivy, this is the plant just beside me here. 3 leaves, very droopy leaves, and it's normally not taller than about your ankle. Having said that, guys, if you have ever had poison ivy, you'll know it's not something you want to try again. You break out in that red, blistering, itchy rash.
Okay.
It is super annoying. It doesn't go away for weeks. Having said that, we have sprayed all of our gravel trails, all of the cut grass, the picnic, the parking areas, so there won't be any poison ivy there. And as long as we're sticking to these obvious kind of open areas, it won't be a problem today, guys. So, if we're ready, follow me on down.
I do not want to touch poison ivy.
Okay.
Definitely not.
And stay on the trail. You'll be fine, right?
Yep, I've worked here for like 4 years. I haven't got it once because I
Why
stay
do
in
we
the
stay on the trail?
Well, what did he just say?
You might get lost.
Well, that too.
And poison ivy.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that insult to injury? You get lost, but then you get poison ivy.
Why are we doing that?
It was a joke, sweetie.
It's a really bad one, sorry. You'll get used to them.
Is it the cave?
Yeah.
This is-
Wait, so this is the big dynamite hole?
Yeah, so this is the artificial entrance I mentioned before. All of this rock around us, it has been exploded with dynamite and restacked up with concrete, just so there's a human-sized hole to fit down here. That isn't, of course, a sinkhole.
What did it fall?
Falls? With the rock?
Yeah.
Well, the rock won't fall. We put concrete in, so we put kind of liquid rock, so all this stuff is, and it's holding the rock in. It cements the rock, as it were.
But it's kind of wet down here.
Yeah, there's always a bit of water in the caves here, but nothing we have to be afraid of.
Oh, and please do not turn off the lights.
This is narrow.
This is narrow.
It is narrow, yeah.
Yeah, it is narrow.
Oh, watch your heads.
Why?
Because I'm taller than you. I don't want to get my head.
You're going to be my cave leader. And what that means, Edmund, is as we get to each new room, you'll stand at the front and no one gets past you. If someone tries to pass your caves. And congratulations on getting this far. I am not talking about my abilities as a guide there, although you should not trust those either. I am talking about claustrophobia. I understand it is a very real condition that many people do suffer from. If that's you, if you need to leave at any point, please guys, just come talk to me first. I'm not going to get angry at you, I won't yell at you for wanting to leave, and I definitely won't force you to stay down here if you want to go. I'll just help you get back to the nearest exit, to the open, the fresh air, maybe calm you down a bit. I will ask guys, if you want to leave, you don't just disappear kind of thing, as it is a very bad feeling in the pit of my stomach when I start to lose people down here, right? I'm sure you can get that. And now that that's been said, when Tom comes through these caves back in 1953, he doesn't have any of the nice things we do, like the electric lights, the wooden boardwalk, or the 6 concrete dams we have put in place to hold back the river outside. The sinkhole that Tom jumps into, it drops him just down that side tunnel over there. You guys will all get a much better chance to see it as we move on. But Tom only lands down there into a few inches of water. That's obviously no problem until he gets to the room we are in now. So, as you guys might be able to tell, by the way these cave walls are carved out around us more than anything, this room, it used to house a whirlpool, about waist deep. Tom sees all of that spinning water and decides it's a pretty bad idea to go swimming. So instead, Tom takes out the flashlight. He begins to shine it around, down every side tunnel he can see, just looking for a way to go. And while Tom is searching, he finds a side tunnel just behind me back here to the right. Tom sees only about a foot of water flowing into this tunnel, but he notices that water isn't bouncing right back out, which means this does lead somewhere. And Tom, he is convinced, guys, if he can get to that tunnel, he will get deeper in the caves. Oh, I guess you guys take a few steps back. Thanks, guys. Now, it's at that point which Tom decides, I am an athlete. I will just jump over this whirlpool to get deeper in the caves. It's a pretty bad idea. Tom splashes down directly in the middle of that whirlpool. About when you guys are there. Now, luckily for Tom, this water, it is only about waist deep. So, with a firm hand grip on the walls, catching his feet on the uneven floor, Tom was able to pull himself out into the shallower section and continue down that tunnel. All of you guys, you will get a chance to go through that tunnel, but we're going to go through from the other end, or the reverse of what Tom did. It just tends to lead to less people getting lost or murdered. No, not actually, guys. It is just way, way easier from the other ends, and I will point it out when we get there. Oh, yep.
I just before we went down the steps, I saw like a thing that says "Living on Pattern." Guide. If you go down to the sea or go to guide, you see that bus. But with the guide,
silly.
That's exactly it. That's exactly what design is there. But if you're ready, guys, I'm going to see kind of behind you here. Perfect. We're going to keep on moving forwards now. So, cave leader Edmund, yep, we'll continue. There in this room. It's getting a bit bigger. You'll have a much easier time seeing everything in here. Awesome. Yeah, I'll get you guys to fill on that wall. Thanks, guys. Come here, baby. Keep on moving in, guys. Yeah, we'll keep on moving in.
He's been deputized.
Oh,
sorry. Okay. Okay.
Excuse me. Just a few feet after we left the spot where that little bench was, that little wooden bench, I saw like a tunnel with little puddles in it.
It's definitely possible, yeah. We do still have water down here. Now, guys, this next room we're in now, this is our stalactite room. Now, we call it that, of course, because of these. The rock icicles just above us, if you will, these are our stalactites. They are mineral formations made of calcium carbonate, exact same mineral as the limestone itself. And these grow, they form when water from above ground, so that's things like rainwater, slowly seep through the layers and layers of this limestone, picking up all kinds of calcium along the way, guys. Then, when this mineral-rich water reaches us down here in the caves and drips off the roof or tip of a stalactite, it leaves just a few minerals behind. It's minute amounts. It is enough, however, guys, that we can chart their growth. And judging by the size of a stalactite, with knowledge of how long it's been there, we know that these stalactites in these caves grow at the average rate of 1 cubic inch every 150 years. Which makes the big guy just here above me over 800 years old. And 800 years, it's really nothing, guys. A baby as far as stalactites get. Oh, yep.
I just found water on my hands.
Definitely. All over the walls. Does not surprise me. You might even get a few drips off the roof over down here if you're lucky enough. Or unlucky enough, I guess. Now, guys, as I was saying, 800 years, it is a baby. As stalactites, they can grow upwards of hundreds of thousands of years old in the older caves of the world. Now, we don't have anything like that here, guys. Those massive ceiling-to-floor pillars, as cool as they are, it's just because we are such a young cave. We're only about 12,000 years old, which I get sounds like a very long time. However, in the geologic sense, 12,000 years is nothing. The blink of an eye. And the reason I know that, the evidence to that number, guys, is in the walls around us. If you feel them, beneath the water, that is all the wetness is, you're going to feel a bumpy or almost scaly pattern on the rock. The correct name for that pattern, guys, is scalloping or fluting. And pardon the pun, but it is rock-solid evidence that these caves, they weren't only carved out by water. You see, guys, when water passes over rock, it carves it perfectly smooth. Think of the stones you would find on the bank of a river. This pattern, it is textbook evidence that these caves, they were also carved out by a small concentration of acid inside of that water. The type of acid was carbonic acid, the exact same stuff you'll find in your average can of Coke or Pepsi today. coincidentally, and that's also why it is a great idea to brush your teeth, guys. In a few thousand years, this is what they'll look like. And all of this carbonic acid, it was left behind by the last glaciers, the last ice age. About 13,000 years ago, back when we had kilometers of ice above us, moving around us. Now, the sheer weight of that much water pressing down causes a vertical crack in the soft rock itself. It's puny at first, perhaps a millimeter or two wide. However, that is the humble beginnings to this cave, just a small glacial crack. Now, eventually those glaciers, they go away, they return back north, and when that happens, they leave all this carbonic acid they were carrying, as well as a fair amount of water, as I'm sure you guys can imagine. That water, it begins to flow, it picks up the carbonic acid, and then it flows to the riverbeds. One of them, the Bonnechere, just outside, that we are just looking at. And that very powerful water, mixed with the hint of acid, it eventually finds that vertical crack, slowly widening it to what we're standing in. We really haven't made any changes down here, aside from the painfully obvious stuff. So, lights, boardwalk, entrance, exit, that kind of thing. Yeah.
I see holes in stalactites.
You see holes in the stalactites.
Absolutely. So the holes, there'll be a hole in the tip of every stalactite. That's actually where the water is flowing through. So the water makes its way down through that hole, gathers a drop on the end, and then when that drop falls off, it's when it grows a bit longer. Awesome. Cool question, though. But if we're ready, guys, we're going to keep on pushing forwards here. Excellent. Very nice. Good stuff. Okay, Leela. So I'll get you to move those straight up there. It's perfect here.
I'm just supposed to go downhill a bit.
Oh, he's playing peekaboo.
I am. I'm in the wall now.
Guess what?
What?
I thought the net go down a bit with some funny little cracks or upwards or disconnection from that.
You'll notice actually the boardwalk, it keeps going down. Until we get to our lowest section, this boardwalk will be sloped down the entire way.
They kind of look like
So guys, just behind me back here, it is indeed the other end of Tom's tunnel. You might remember me saying Tom enters this tunnel back in that first room, and about a foot of water, but a foot of water back here, that is closer to this deep out here. It's around our chest, our stomachs, and it isn't simply floating by gently. Think of the Whitewater River outside that we were just looking at. Directly feeds this current. Tom gets to this point where I'm standing, he sticks his head out, looks around, sees all of that rushing water, and Tom decides, no way. It simply isn't possible. Water is too deep, going too fast, he can't continue. So Tom makes a very, very good decision, guys, and Tom heads home for the day. But he comes back here the very next day with 2 new pieces of gear, and he is just bent on getting past this point, guys. The first, his best friend's camera. Now, it's the 50s. Cameras, they are not the cheapest thing around. Tom figures, why on earth would I risk my own stuff going cave exploring? Ooh. Watch this, okay. Awesome. Now, Tom figures he's not going to bring his own camera down because he doesn't want it broken. But the second piece of gear Tom brings with him is one of those small inflatable rubber boats. You know, the almost children's type dinghies you can get. Tom brings it down here, inflates it, and hops in. Ooh. Now, as Tom is sitting here in this little rubber dinghy, he is feeling way too confident in his plan, despite all of this rushing water. So, he grabs his flashlight in one hand, his best friend's camera with the other, and Tom continues to sail down that way, into the darkness, to see where this cave will take him. Now, we are going to take a step to this.
Oh. They didn't say I had to crawl. Olivia, wait!
Hey, I'm here.
Okay.
I'm over here, Mommy. Over here.
Livia? Livia, stop!
Mommy! Mommy!
All right,
My legs on the wall so I wouldn't get wet.
cool.
So I believe there's still one or two folks in the tunnel still left.
Yeah, they're just waiting for us.
Because there's a bit of
Getting rained on.
Yeah, there's quite a few puddles down there for sure.
yeah, because there's a few like little holes from like the left overwrapping water that's on the main raft.
Exactly it. I don't hear anyone else. I know they're down there.
Yeah, they'll take it.
My mom would die.
I hear people talking.
It's a group behind us, so we weren't supposed to go through twice. That's puts us a bit behind schedule, as it were.
Disown
So
you.
we're running for this group behind us now, but we still have to wait for the other folks to get back. We can't leave them behind.
I can't believe the afternoon was now.
Well, we're in afternoon too. We started at noon.
Yeah, my wife and my daughter won't make it.
When it's our turn.
Or
We have
are
to
they
wait.
going back out, you mean, or?
No, they take their time when we move, they start moving. It's not
Oh. Well,
They're coming. They're behind us.
Excuse me.
yep.
When was it possible?
Can't wait to go back.
Before we came into the cave?
Joe!
I noticed that like all the lines that like the scientists referred to that it was nothing.
Because we're in a cave.
Yeah,
of course he would. They end up following you and end up in the hospital because
Oh, it wasn't though. It was not on the board anywhere.
I know. It kind of looked like that. It would just have like
This, you know, is for one thing, you're gonna punch it hard enough, and the second thing, the water made it solid. It is rock. This is rock.
no, because it's already has evaporating. It has like Bonnechere Caves and all
Mommy?
We're gonna keep on moving forwards now, guys. I'll just see if I can't sneak to that roof real quick. Oh. Thanks, guys.
Let the gentleman go.
Thank you, guys.
I've seen one of these.
We'll take our time to get on these next steps. They can be quite slippy, so again, take your time. No need to rush through. So guys, maybe we'll grab that rope just out there if I could.
Emmett, we're guarding the rope.
Thank you, guys. Excellent.
Means no one's allowed going by it.
Only if he said so.
Because you've been deputized, remember? You're in charge.
Keep up with it. We'll keep pushing as far back as we can, just so we can try to get everyone actually around this corner into the room itself. Thanks, guys. Here we go.
You need to pour the tea.
Are you glad you came, William?
So guys, this is our largest room of the Bonnechere Caves. It's so large that on 3 separate occasions, 3 different couples, they have indeed got married in this room. All 3 weddings happened just by the small rope over there, and we do have pictures from all 3 of those ceremonies back up on the surface, next to our 12-foot cephalopod. Maybe something to see after. Now, the reason this room is so large, guys, it used to house our cave's biggest whirlpool. So there was water in this room, way up at its natural level up there, racing around in a circular motion, carving all of these very round patterns off the walls about us. But you guys may remember, Tom is now floating around in a rubber dinghy. So a massive subterranean whirlpool, it's a bit of a problem for Tom. He knows if he crashes into this very low roof, maybe hits his head, drops under it, there is a good chance Tom is not getting back out of the caves. But you see, guys, he doesn't really have to worry about this roof up here. When Tom crashes into this wall, along with the rest of the water, he slams into it and bounces off. Tom begins to tip out of his boat sideways, into the whirlpool. I don't really think I need to stress how bad of a situation that is. It is, however, in this time, Tom spots our cave's largest stalactite. A full 12,000 years old, up in this flat corner. It is roughly the age of our cave system. However, at that point, guys, Tom, he was not thinking, what a great geological find. Tom is, in fact, thinking, hey, a hand grip, I'm tipping over. In order to grab it, however, and re-steady himself in the boat, Tom has to drop something. You might remember, both of his hands are now full. In one hand, his flashlight, his only source of light while he's down here. And in the other, Tom has his best friend's camera. Just out of, call it curiosity, what did you guys drop? If you were in that situation, you had to drop something. Camera. Right answer. If you're ever in that situation, I obviously hope that you're not. You should always be dropping the camera. Your light source is far too important in that situation. Tom, however, I guess he's a better friend than us, as he does decide to drop the light. Claimed to the day he died, he meant to drop that flashlight. However, Tom did admit he was trying to drop it close to him, so in his boat, where of course it would keep giving off light. However, as Tom is on the edge of this massive whirlpool, he is getting jostled around. So much so that when he drops his light, it is over the edge of his boat, straight into the water. But that light is instantly extinguished, plunging Tom into absolute darkness. Which brings us to the light switch. You guys are all okay with it, I can click the lights off for 15, maybe 20 seconds or so, and we can all see what that feels like. We can experience absolute darkness. Good. Yeah, good. I will just ask, guys, before I do that, all sources of light are extinguished. Obviously flashlights, cell phones, cameras, even glow-in-the-dark watch faces will throw off the effect. So if you like me, your watch glows, just cover it up. That's what I'll be doing. I would also suggest you stand beside someone you trust, which is why I'll be standing over here by myself. Nothing personal.
Yes, I will turn it off.
But if you guys think you're ready, in 3, 2, 1.
Hold me.
Something in front of me.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm right here. I'm
So
right
guys,
here.
this is absolute darkness. The
I'm right
proper
here.
term for a point at which no light reaches. Your eyes, they will never adjust to this because, of course, there is nothing to adjust to.
It's okay. Big breath. Big breath. Big breath.
That, guys,
There
that
we
is what
go.
Tom would have been dropped into when he dropped the light.
Olivia.
The big difference is Tom is on the edge of a massive whirlpool, and he is just clinging to a stalactite. After a few moments of what had to have been absolute abject terror, Tom gets his bearings, and he remembers he still has the rope tied around his waist. The rope he uses to enter these caves in the first place. Very slowly, very carefully, Tom turns himself around in the dinghy, places his friend's camera into his lap, and Tom begins to pull himself, hand over hand, back up the rope, which is still attached to the tree outside by the sinkhole. When he jumps in, it may feel like we've been down here for miles and miles, guys. It's only about 75 meters back to that first room, not the furthest distance. Even so, Tom estimates it took him over 2 hours to pull himself back out. Remember, Tom is now going uphill against the current in pitch black. It is not an easy climb. But eventually, Tom does get out. Then finally, after 2 days of cave exploring, Tom tells his wife where he's been. Somehow, she's okay with it. Believe it or not, Tom's wife, Ruth Woodward, is fine with the fact he went on this adventure. And Ruth actually agrees to help Tom buy this property off the local farmers who owned it up until that point.
Olivia.
After they buy it for about 2 years, they get it ready for the first tours. So they install these first boardwalks, the first lighting systems, they dam up the river above ground, all that kind of stuff. And in 1955, 2 years after his adventure, our first guided tour goes out. It was led by Tom himself, as all the earliest ones were, And if you guys would have came here in our first 10 years of business, so up until 1965, this room is as far as you would have got. Tom, he would bring you down here, stand just by the rope, kind of lean on that rope, talk about the caves, talk about his adventure, and then everyone, the entire group would just turn around, going back out the same way they came, the direction we came from. There was a really good reason for that, guys. That lowest section just past the rope, it does lie beneath the water table. So naturally, constantly, it is trying to refill itself with groundwater. It just seeps into the limestone walls. Nothing you can even think about damming up. However, 1965 rolls around and Tom buys 2 submersible pumps and a whole mess of plastic piping. He installs them down there and pumps out that water. So we can now continue. Question?
Lights. I moved there to make lights. Why are these lights? Why are these lights automatic?
He turned them on. They're not automatic.
But if we're ready, guys, we will descend to our lowest section now.
Okay, hold on. Oh,
We're in a cave. I just said we're dropping beneath the water table, didn't I?
yeah.
There we go. I just clicked the pumps on.
What's that?
So guys, as I mentioned back at the top of those steps, this is our deepest section of the Bonnechere Caves. In other words, we will not be getting further underground than we are standing right here. But just before we keep going, guys, do you have any guesses as to how far underground we are right now? Yeah. 150 meters, all right.
30 meters.
30 meters, you're more or less right. You're just a touch high. We're about 28 meters, so just under 100 feet down. Now, you guys, you may have noticed we haven't gone down 100 feet. It's because we haven't. We've kind of been cheating. You see, guys, as we've been going down through the steady slope of the boardwalk, all of those sets of stairs, the hill above us, it's been going up. Even so, we still do have almost 10 stories of solid rock just sitting up there above our heads. A humbling fact, I suppose. But we are going to keep on moving forwards, guys. We are getting very close to the exit, but still some cool stuff to look at before then, for sure.
There's a frog in there.
Yeah,
Yeah, he just went.
I
He just
believe
went
it.
down there.
Excuse me?
But I'm going to there.
Oh, there he is.
93 feet.
Frog living there. It's so deep.
How did a frog get down
There's a
here?
frog down here, guys. If you'd like, we do get to name that frog. So if anyone has any good frog names, now's the time.
What?
It won't be frog or
Froggy.
Kermit.
Froggy the frog?
Froggy works.
Yep.
It is a frog.
It is a frog.
Are you? That's probably a good idea because you're a lot taller than me and stuff. Why?
Now, guys, I'm going to get you to keep on walking out to about where that bottom step is. We're not going to quite go up them yet. We'll just wait near the bottom. Thanks, guys. Excellent. So, guys, we're moving to another very small area. We will most likely have to make a few rows in here, so don't feel bad about hopping in front, kind of running in front of these folks, as I will be looking straight over you guys to see them. It's not a problem. Yeah, thanks, guys. Nice?
It's because there's like giant blocks.
There.
Excuse me. Is it okay if we touch like any extra water?
Yeah, it might be a bit
climb the
cold and
rocks.
dirty, but I mean, I'm not
Because
too
you're gonna
I'm not
slip
gonna
and
stop you. So guys, as we stand in this next area, there's a very good chance you all start to feel a bit unsafe, I guess, probably a good word, maybe betrayed. After all, I just finished telling you we are 90 feet down, and now this. Simply put, we had a cave-in. Weren't exactly feeling the best about it, so we called in a government inspector. Over the course of a few weeks, this inspector takes some measurements, does the math, and concludes you guys are pretty safe. But to make absolutely sure that nothing will happen, that nothing will shift within this rock, I will install a rod in a load-bearing position to relieve some of the stress that the upper rock, so two big pieces up here on top, are exerting on the lower rock, which would be the ones just beneath them down here. And the inspector explains to us that if this rod was to be removed, the upper rock, it would most likely shift, come sliding down this way. Not as much.
What was cave in?
That'll
David,
give me a
this-
heart attack.
I didn't say yeah, a few thousand years ago.
Oh, okay.
So this, yeah, don't worry guys, there was no inspector we ever called in here. Well, there was, but not just during the immediate aftermath kind of thing. As I said, this rock has fallen a few thousand years ago. We can tell that if you look just up here, guys, on the roof where this rock used to be. You can see we do have stalactites growing. You guys might remember me saying these grow at the rate of 1 cubic inch every 150 years. We know that these didn't just spring up overnight. This is easily 1.5, closer to 2,000 years up there on the wall. Yep.
I know you blew this place up. Well, it makes the fun part because a lot of wood and steel fences, that's all the rocks sliding down onto the place where people walk.
It does. Now guys, the reason this rock has fallen, why it sits where it now does, it used to, of course, been up there on the roof, held up by a pillar. So something like this pillar here, just a thinner section of rock connecting the floor and the roof. It takes the stress off the upper rock. Now, you guys may not have noticed, but our water, it actually has to go uphill to reach the exit. Water very famously does not like to do that. So first it has to pressurize, it has to gain some energy to get up that next little bit. And it does that in the caves in the form of our third and final whirlpool. This one, it's puny compared to the other two. The water is almost harmlessly splashing around in this area before continuing up that way. However, guys, this moving water, it is strong enough to slowly chip or erode away at the pillar that was standing just behind me. The pillar holding up this rock until, of course, the point where it isn't supporting all of this weight. The pillar gets washed out, all of it comes tumbling down. It has not moved since then, guys. The four big pieces behind me and then the stone wall just over here, they hold each other up like a massive puzzle. But you can't actually see the entire cave in from here, guys. For that, I'll get you to go up the steps now, take a left at the top, go to the little wooden railing you'll see, and there is a much, much nicer upper angle view of the entire cave. It gives you a much better idea of how much rock actually steps. Step over there, guys. Good job.
Wow.
If that rock comes, would these rocks would fall?
Yeah, it's the cave-in that you talked about.
What's a cave in?
When the cave falls in on itself.
What do you mean?
All right.
It's taller.
When you guys leave through this door, you're going to be standing on a path. Said path takes you up some steps to the top of the hill where you're all going to see a fork in the road. Please pick up that fork. It's mine. It's from my lunch. I'm kidding. Obviously, the fork goes left or right. The right path, it is the fastest way back to the booth, the facilities, the parking lot, your car. And it only takes about 5 minutes. So if you guys are in a rush, if you have somewhere you need to be, do take this right path. But, oh, just a second. If you guys have the time, 5, maybe 10 minutes extra, I would really suggest you go down the left path. That left one takes you around the sinkhole that Tom jumps into to first enter these caves in the 50s, and then by the railing closer to the river for some more amazing views of the white water. It's a more scenic route back to the same place. But guys, I think you've made your choices. I thank you for coming. You have an awesome group. But I will open the door and let you guys enter freedom. Yep.
Excuse me. And not just a big rock. I saw like little pieces of bunch of small rocks.
So yeah, when that rock fell off the roof and hits the ground, it breaks up into a bit smaller pieces, some of them.
What do we say? Say thank you.
Not at all, guys. Thanks for coming.
Where do we go?
We're leaving. And then wait for us.
Where's the...
Emin, wait for us. Wow, look up here. Wow. Yeah.
Which one is the left? That side?
When we get to the top.
What does she mean a fork in the road? What does she mean a fork in the road?
Or if it goes left or right. Come on.
If we were down at the last and deepest section, I would freeze to death.
Probably.
I have very sensitive skin.
You want your camera?
But you may lose it.
Well, then just hold it properly. Or do you want it when we get there?
I can have it when we get there. Yeah, I want to take a picture of that bottomless pit.
Okay. Fingers out of your face.
I want to take a picture of it too.
Okay.
But we are not going into the bottomless pit because it took Tom 2 hours to get up. Back up. Back up?
Yeah, we don't have 2 hours.
What?
We don't have 2 hours, right?
Right. We have to get home to lunch. And we would need to bring some climbing gear. I want a climbing gear. Can I be a climbing gear?
You want climbing gear?
Yeah. I do. Emma, where are you? Don't go without us! Oh, we want him.
Keep going.
We want him.
Keep going.
Oh, there you are. We are looking for you. We are looking. Can you not? Here I come. It's okay, but let's stop. Which way is left? That way?
Which way's left, bud? Walk. Walk. Walk.
Here we go. And Mommy, if I bring hiking gear, if I bring hiking gear, I'll just drop down in the sinkhole after, and then I can see if I can climb back up. But sinkhole that way. Mommy, I want to be climbing gear.
Okay.
So which way is the sinkhole? That way. You didn't know that. What way? He said left.
Yeah, it goes the same way.
No?
Could this be it, maybe?
Yeah.
It's right here.
No, it's
Holy
not.
smokes.
That's not sinkhole.
Yeah, it is. Look over here. There. Holy moly.
Wait, I can see. Oh my gosh. Mommy, I can see rock at the bottom, for God's sake. I see rock at the bottom. I can see rock at the bottom.
Yeah, you said it was a bottomless pit. He said it was a sinkhole. Can you hear the river?
No river. No river.